What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Behind the Glass Sports Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, whether you're watching via YouTube or listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Overcast, and Radio Public. There's a lot that you can find us on, so hopefully you're listening. And I just have to take a second, okay, before we get into everything. You can follow us on Twitter, whatever, at Stephen Priest Jr. for myself, at Brandon_Stoll for Brandon. Everybody knows we're international, right? We got listeners in Germany and England. Great. Whatever. We love those guys. We have a listener in Serbia. Okay, this is not a joke. If this is any way Nikola Jokic or somebody related to Nikola Jokic, I love you. Seriously.
I don't think he's in Serbia though right now.
He's not. At least I don't think he would be. But when I saw that on our podcast hosting platform, I about lost my stuff. So thanks to whoever's listening in Serbia. We appreciate it. I tried to learn how to say thank you in Serbian, and I could not understand the Google translation that the man was trying to say. So I'm just going to say thank you and hope that you speak English and understand me that way. But we appreciate you listening. Really, anybody that's listened for any amount of time, 1 second to the whole podcast, or even halfway through, we appreciate your plays, your listens, your clicks, and all the slander for Brandon for wanting to trade Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I appreciate that as well. We got a huge show for you guys today. A lot of NBA Nuggets themes. We got some breaking NBA news. It looks like they've settled on a destination for where we're going to have the league return and restart. Don't necessarily know what the playoff, or I should say what the format is going to be just yet. But at least we have a site. So we know it's for sure coming back, and we have a target date of July 31st, I believe is the date that they've settled on. So that looks like that's in the works. But before we get to that, this idea was spawned by an article from someone with The Athletic, Nick Kosmider. Shout out to him for writing the articles, but it gave us a springboard to say, that's an interesting topic. We should hit that up on the podcast. What's best for the Denver Nuggets when they return to play? Is it going the route of having some regular season games? Is it jumping right into the playoffs? It's an interesting conversation. So now that we know it looks like basketball is coming back, which would you prefer for this team? Is it regular season play to get some tune-up, or do you want them to jump right into the playoffs?
Well, the thing is if they all come back and jump right into the playoffs, right? Everyone's on an even playing field. Everyone's been sitting out for however long it's been. But I think there's other teams that have probably been doing a little bit better as far as staying in shape, and obviously the big concern is Jokic, right? Is he going to be back to what he was in the first 2 months of the season, or is he going to be still in shape, still in basketball shape and whatnot, like he was when the season was postponed? So that's the issue. So I think if he's not, then it would be best for the Nuggets to have regular season games. But again, that's if he's in shape and he's ready to go, then honestly, I don't think it matters because everyone's on an even playing field. So if everyone is ready to go, and everyone's kind of at the same basketball shape, then I'm okay with either way. But I guess it really depends on Jokic. And obviously he's the Nuggets' best player. He's the most important player, so he has to be ready. And if he's not, then unfortunately for the Nuggets, they're gonna be at a disadvantage.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw it the other day, but I almost about lost my mind second to us finding a Serbian listener of our podcast when I saw a picture floating around on Twitter of Nikola Jokic. I don't know if it's recent or not, but man, he might look underweight now. And now I'm concerned the other way. Now, it's great that he's not 450 pounds eating bonbons all day, but he looked very skinny. I don't know if you saw that photo. And again, I don't know if it's recent, but it looks like if it is recent, he's staying in shape, that he's skinny. I don't know if he's going to be able to throw his weight around like he was at the end of this, or during this season when he was just bullying guys. But I'm sure putting on weight wouldn't be a hard challenge for Nikola Jokic. So if they were like, hey Nikola, you need to gain 15, he'd say no more. Give me those crumble cookies with Steven. That would be great. But if I had to choose as well, so you said
I'm okay with them going right into the play. If he's
playoffs,
ready to go, I'm ready. I'm. Let's go to the playoffs.
I think I prefer some sort of tune-up. just to kind of really just not just for the Nuggets in general, just but for everybody, really. I mean, at least the teams that are going to be in the playoffs.
Hmm.
Maybe it's 5 to 10 games of regular season play, and I know that's tough because now you're asking teams that really aren't going to be in contention to have to come back and have some sort of inherent risk with that, with the virus and everything. Or maybe you just do it like hockey in a way where it's a round robin tournament,
Hmm.
or maybe you just, hey, you get the 16 teams that are going to be in the playoffs, and then those 1 through 8 teams in each conference, have them play 5 randomized games between each other, and at least you're playing playoff competition at that point, getting ready to head into the playoffs. Because I don't know if jumping straight into playoff basketball I mean, a 7 game grueling series, and you wouldn't want to shorten the series, right? Because that would kind of just
Yeah.
take away from everything.
But I also
I
think that would be an advantage for the Nuggets just jumping in, because you look at, they're one of very few teams who have that chemistry and they can just jump right into it and go. I mean, we've seen it in regular season games. I mean, they kind of just do whatever for 3 quarters and they're like, okay, let's turn it on. I think they're one of the very few teams that can do that. And if you're playing Dallas or if you're playing Houston, they can't do that. Neither of those teams as a whole can do that. There's certain players on those teams that can do it, but as a team, they can't do that. So I think it would actually benefit the Nuggets to jump right into the playoffs and take advantage of maybe being able to turn that switch on a little bit quicker than, say, Houston or Dallas. And at least it would help them through the first round. Because, I mean, that's what I'm kind of concerned about. I mean, can they really, if the season continued and they had to play Dallas, I don't think they would be able to beat Dallas. So maybe this gives them a little bit more of an edge. I mean, it could do the opposite, I guess. It could easily do that. But from what I've seen from the Nuggets, I mean, I think they could easily just kind of turn that switch back on because we watched it all season long. I mean, it drove us nuts. But that might be the advantage for them right now.
And I'm trying to remember the tweet of where I saw it, but they also had it was like a proposed idea to where they would have kind of like in soccer where they have, groups, and they group each team and all that. I'm trying to find that tweet because it's funny you mentioned that, like you don't know if the Nuggets would be able to beat the Mavericks, but I'm looking at the group that the Nuggets would have been in these proposed groups, and it was like the Nets, the Mavs, and all the Pacers, and I'm just like, I look at all these teams, the Kings. I was like, I don't know if the Nuggets can beat any of these teams because I could see the Nuggets easily losing to all of these teams if it really came
Well,
down
I don't
to it.
think they lose to the Kings, but
They did earlier this year. I think both
yeah,
games against the Kings went down to the
but
wire, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, but that's them looking down on their competition, and I think when they come back, it will be a little bit more of, all right, we need to go. Like, we need to play at 100% all the time. And I think that's kind of something that's hurt them a lot is they at least with this season, because look, if you go ahead and watch them last season, I think they played hard every night for the most part.
Yes, I
And
agree.
they were trying to get that number 1 seed. Like, they were playing hard every night. I think this season, even though they were on pace to having the same record, if not better, which is kind of crazy, they were not playing hard 100% of the time. They were playing hard maybe 60% of the time, and only when they needed to. So, to me, when they come back, as long as everyone is, again, everyone is going to be on a pretty much a even playing field as far as being in basketball shape. I think the one concern obviously is Jokic, but other than that, if Jokic is good to go and he's kind of up to where everyone else is, then they're gonna play hard and I think they're gonna play at maybe not their highest possible level, but they're gonna be pretty close because they have that. I mean, what did everyone talk about going into the season? They have the chemistry, right? This team has been together for the last 3-4 years, at least the core of it. And you're implementing Grant and Porter, and I get that, but at the same time, they're role guys. So you can kind of put them in certain spots when you need to. And really in the playoffs, I doubt Porter's even going to play. So, and Jeremy Grant seemed to kind of get everything together pretty quickly. So I think they have that advantage of, okay, we can turn it on whenever we want, and because of that, now when we enter the playoffs and we'll enter this whatever situation, I think that's going to be a big advantage for them over guys or over other teams who, like Houston especially, when they had just changed their whole system. They traded Capella, they went to this really undersized group, and a couple weeks later the season gets postponed. So I think they were still trying to figure things out. So if they get to play Houston in the first round, they might sweep them, because I don't think Houston is going to be able to figure it out unless James Harden and Russell Westbrook absolutely carry the crap out of that team. But even then, I mean, I don't know if that's enough. I really don't. So, I mean, I think that's I would rather, as a Nuggets fan, I think I would rather just jump right into it, because you need to take advantage of the chemistry that you have before the rest of the teams catch up, which would be probably round 2.
Yeah, I mean they have the chemistry for sure, but it just feels like even with that chemistry that the offense wasn't clicking. And for whatever reason that was, whether it was, I mean, I can't explain to you why it was, because we just don't
I
have
think it
any
was
idea.
focus. I really do. I think they realized that they could win games without having to play 100% of the time. And we saw what happened when they did play 100% of the time in the regular season. They got
That's such a
tired.
dangerous method, though.
Yeah, but at the same
And I don't think they're
time,
good enough to have that mentality. I
well,
don't
I
think they
mean,
have the
they
players
were on
that can
pace to
just
win
turn
in
it
the same
on.
amount of games. Can you
For
imagine
sure.
if they were playing 100% the whole season? They'd probably be
Like
on
last
pace
year.
to beating last year easily and maybe winning 60 games.
Well, that's the funny part about this whole thing. So, like, you have to look at the context of this entire Nuggets team. We're slamming them, and it's like, oh my god, just something feels off. But then they're on pace to winning around the same amount of
Right.
games as they did last year. And now it's like last year they went balls to the wall, and then now this year it's like they pick and choose their moments. And I'm like, and I don't think that they're good enough to have that mentality. They can do it against bad teams, yes, but against like the Lakers, the Clippers, they can't do
Well,
that
but
against
they
those
came out of the
teams.
gate playing hard against those teams. I mean, we saw the Laker game
Except for
right
the
before.
Clippers. That last Clippers game, they got
Yeah.
completely
But
demolished.
the Laker game right before the All-Star break, they lost in
Yes.
overtime. I
Yes.
mean, they came out and they played great. And that was a team in the Lakers that was playing, I mean, they were playing incredible at that point. And I remember going into that game, I was like, the Nuggets are going to get demolished. I mean, they're going
Yeah.
to lose by 20, 30 points. And they came out and, I mean, it was close throughout the whole game. So that was the game where I think that showed me that when they play teams like Atlanta or even Memphis or whoever, they're just not going to come out of the gate focused and ready to go. They're just not. But if it is the Lakers, if it is the Bucks, who they beat twice,
Mhm.
and once with 7 guys, they're gonna come out and they're gonna play hard and they're gonna be ready to go. And when you have that core ready to go and playing hard, I mean, like Jokic, Jamal, I mean, Gary on the defensive end. I mean, on the offensive end, it doesn't matter how hard he's playing. I mean,
That's just rough.
it's just
That's tough
bad.
to watch.
But even Will Barton, I mean, when he's
Yeah.
focused and ready to go, he's playing really well with those guys.
Wait, hold on. Did you just compliment Will
When
Barton
he's
on the
focused,
podcast?
he's focused about 2% of the time. So,
Oh, there's
that's the
love for
problem.
Will Barton. I see it.
When
It's
But again, I
it's a
mean,
weird
that's the
team.
thing is they showed that against good teams, when they want to show, how good they are, they're going to come out and play well. And we saw it in the playoffs last year. I mean, really, in every game last year, they played extremely hard. And I mean, did they ever get blown out in one of those playoff games? Maybe one?
Um, I think there was probably a game in San Antonio where
Right.
they didn't play great. I
I'm
don't. I
thinking it
mean,
was
they.
game 3 when they went down 2-1.
I'll look back, but I don't really remember one game where it was like, okay, they just didn't come to
Right.
play today.
Right. And that's a constant issue that we've seen in the regular season this year, and maybe not
Yeah.
last year, but the year before. and they went into the playoffs and they're ready to go. And that's so I trust that they're going to be able to do that again, because that team that we saw in the playoffs, which is a team that's pretty much the same exact team as this year, at least the group that's going to be playing, those 8-9 guys that will be playing, it's pretty much the same other than one guy or two, maybe if Porter is playing. So if that's the case, I trust that they're going to come out and they're going to be playing hard right out of the gate. And the way they played against Dame, and the way they were able to kind of trap him and shut him down, they can do that against Luka. You know, they can do that against James Harden. They know how to play against. They've always seemed to play well against, at least kind of figure it out, Russ Westbrook ever since he went to Houston. So they can kind of. They know how to, at least with those guards, being able to trap them up high. And if you're doing that consistently, like they did against Damian Lillard last year, then they'll be able to do it this year. And so I think I trust them as far as being able to turn that switch on, I think a little bit more than other people, because to me, they proved it. And I get they don't have a LeBron, a Giannis to I guess make you a little bit more confident that they could do it. But I mean, as a team, I think they've shown that they could do it.
Yeah, I'm looking back at last year's playoffs, and there was a few games. So in Game 6 against the Spurs, they lost by 17.
Okay.
They lost by 10 in Game 3 to the Spurs.
Yeah. See,
I didn't remember that they lost Game 1 to the Spurs at home.
Yeah, that's how they started it. And
I don't remember
the
that.
same exact thing happened against Portland. They lost Game 1, I believe.
No, they won Game 1.
Yeah, they
won
lost Game 2.
Yeah, they lost Game 2 and Game 3. But I mean, for a team to lose Game 1 at home, and then Game 6, you know, you're coming back home, you lost by 17.
You got to remember, though,
put up 43, 12, and 9 in that game, and they lost by 17.
I remember thinking that it took them a game to figure something out. So, like, it took them a game to learn how to win a playoff game, right? And then it took them a game to learn how to win a road playoff game. And then it took them a game to learn how to close out a series. And so, like, that was just kind of that thing of, like, all right, when are they going to, like, it took them a game. Every new situation that they were in, it took them a game to figure it out. And so, at least in that San Antonio series. And then they did the exact same thing in the Portland series. They won Game 1. You lose Game 2. Game 3 was insane. I mean, they really should have won that. We really need to do that video.
I'm looking at the stat line right now, and Jokic had 33, 18, and 14 in 2 blocks.
In Game 3?
In Game 3. 13 of 25, 4 of 7 from 3. You had Jamal go off for 34, 9, and 5. Like, you had 4 out of 5 starters in double digits. Millsap had 17. Gary Harris had 13. Will Barton had 22 off the bench because Torrey Craig was starting
against Portland.
Malik Beasley, I miss you, Malik. He had 11. Oh my God! And they lost that game. Damian only had. CJ McCollum. I mean, Damian Lillard did not play well in that series. CJ McCollum really bailed the Blazers out.
Yeah.
In that series.
Him and Rodney Hood.
Okay. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do that. But yeah, he had 19 in that game.
Yeah, and I believe the majority of that was in that last overtime.
And CJ McCollum killed him in Game 7 of that series to really ice it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, going back to the Nuggets now, I feel like a tune-up would be great if they went into the playoffs. Like, I totally understand what you're saying as far as, you know, just capitalizing on it, because at the end of the day, and you mentioned this as well, I mean, all these teams are on an even playing ground. So even though the Nuggets have chemistry, they're still going to be hurt by the suspension of play, because each team, really probably the Lakers more so, and probably the Clippers more so than any of the teams, because they were playing at such a high clip. If anything, it's more of a detriment to them, because now they have to figure out a way to carry that momentum back and regain it.
Yeah, the Nuggets were not playing at a high clip.
Yeah, the Nuggets were straight poo, and it was not looking good. And like you said, the Rockets, I mean, they had just traded everybody. The tallest guy on their team was 5'8", and, you know, they had to go out and try and defend everybody. And so now it's an even playing field. You have the Utah Jazz, who were kind of up and down too. I think they were just starting to elevate their play a little bit after slumping. So it kind of came at a bad time for them. it would be interesting if we look at like the first round matchups though, and if it ended today, and I don't know how they would do it. I mean, we still have to determine that, because if they go to a regular season format, then obviously you take that into play. If you like a round robin format like the NHL is going to do, that could affect your seeding. But I believe,
Or
if I'm not
even there's been talks
mistaken,
about them doing the 1 through 16, and I
yeah,
believe Denver would be
with the
playing.
Pacers. It would be the Pacers if they did 1 through
Yeah,
16.
it would be
If
the
if they
Pacers.
just
Yeah.
took it straight into the playoffs as is, as the season ended, as if it ended today, it would be the Nuggets as the 3 seed taking on the Houston Rockets as the 6 seed. Which I
I
don't
mean, I
feel
like their
great about
chances.
that. I
If
don't
it
feel
was
great
Dallas,
about
I'd be
that.
scared.
Yeah.
But Houston,
I
they remember the one guy that killed Denver against Houston was Capella. I mean, that was
sure.
really the one thing that the one reason why they could not, that in the corner threes. And obviously they still take a lot of those corner threes, but like, again, I mean,
But I think we're missing the main. Why was Capella such a factor? Why were they getting those corner threes? It's because nobody could stay in front of James Harden. If you can't stay in front of James Harden, he gets to the basket. You're forcing the big to come up, and that's the easy lob. Or if the big stays, he's going to take the layup and
yeah,
get the
but
foul.
they never did that trapping. What they did against Dame,
Yeah, I don't think they've ever
they've
blitzed
never done
James.
again. Yeah, they've never blitzed James Harden. So I think that's something that right out of the gate in game one they're gonna do, and I think they will easily be able to get game one because of that. And then it depends on how James Harden can adapt and if he can get past it, unlike Lillard was able to. But you got to remember too, in the Cavs did it against Golden State when they beat Golden State in the finals back in 2016. That's what they did. They blitzed Steph and they dared Clay and the other guys to beat them. And I remember obviously Clay played well, but Harrison Barnes couldn't hit a shot. So like that we've seen it work against guys like Steph. We've seen it work against Damian Lillard. I mean, I think if you blitz Harden and you dare Russell Westbrook to beat you from the three, if he does it, I think you just gotta say, all right, well, crap. I mean,
That's yeah.
but
That's
I
my
mean,
only
I'm
concern.
willing. I'm willing to take that risk because I don't think Russ can hit 40% from three.
No, he
Even
can't. He's the worst free throw. He's the worst 3-point shooter in terms of like at his position. He might be
right.
one of the worst 3-point shooters just in all the league in general.
So if
When you
you
look at his
if you blitz
percentage.
Harden and you dare him to beat you, I mean, obviously there's other guys that could end up, you know,
Mhm.
torching Denver from three. But again, I think the way Denver and the way we saw them play against Portland last year, if they go ahead and do that same thing, I mean, I don't think Houston has more talent than that Portland team. You got to remember that
Yeah.
Enes Kanter really hurt Denver in that playoff series, and Houston doesn't have anyone like that.
It's just concerning though
It's
because
those
if I was
bigs because even though Jokic has been playing pretty decently defensively, those bigs kill him. The smaller kind of bigs that can the 6'10" guys like even Enes Kanter I believe is maybe like 7 foot, but he plays a little bit differently. Capella really torched them. Boban killed Denver, and he's in Dallas. I think that's one guy that kind of scares you. Even I can't remember. There's someone else on Dallas that would kill them down low. But
the athletic big that they have.
yeah, I mean
Is that who
those
you're thinking
bigs
about?
just hurt them, and Houston doesn't have that guy anymore.
I mean, well,
So
they have Kristaps too, so can't forget about that.
right, but I don't think
Uh,
he really played that well against Denver. Like,
Yeah,
maybe he
he
did.
really hasn't found his stride there.
No.
It's concerning to me because one, I think with Houston, if I was Houston, if you're the Nuggets and you're gonna blitz James, well, now you better either have whoever's, because here's the thing, if they do that pick and roll, if I was Houston, how I would tack it is whoever Jokic is guarding, that's who I want coming to set the pick for James Harden.
Hmm.
That way we can get Jokic out, switched out on James, and he can attack him. If you're gonna blitz him, then whoever set the pick for Harden can either, obviously roll and then now you have to have that weak side help, and now that corner's open,
Right.
or that guy can flare out, and now you're relying on a PJ Tucker or Covington, I think he's there, to hit that three. And they can do that. Now we've obviously seen that they can go super ice cold as well,
Right.
but it's a situation where it's a team that relies on volume shooting, and that more likely than not will knock those down. And you have a team in the Nuggets who more likely than not will not knock those down. So it's a situation to where you could see a lot of lopsided games, to where
Mhm.
it's a 98-96 Nuggets win and a 125 to 102 Houston Rockets win because they got hot from three. It's a roll of the dice either way. I wouldn't feel completely like the Nuggets don't have a chance, but if I had to choose, I'd say it's a coin flip, and I could see either team winning in 6 or 7. And I would probably, if I had to choose, I would lean Houston, just because, again, the NBA ultimately comes down to, do you have the best players? It comes down to your talent, and most of the time, at least. And I would take James Harden over Nikola Jokic. That's just me. I mean, he's the better player, and he doesn't have to depend on someone giving him the ball. He has the ball, and he can control what happens. And he's one of the best scorers in our league.
Yeah, but
It's a dangerous scenario.
if he's playing great, let's do the opposite. If Harden is playing great, but no one else is playing good at all, like if Russ is having a terrible series, if no one
Which
can
is
really
possible.
right, if no one can really step up for Houston, and it's only James Harden,
Yeah.
honestly, I'm still gonna pick Denver, because Harden can't beat Denver by himself, because
No.
Denver
Well,
has too much.
let me ask you this: who do you trust more to back up their star? Do you trust Russell Westbrook more to be there for Harden to be his two, or do you trust Jamal Murray more to show up for Jokic? That's what it comes down to. We could go down the whole rosters and who do you trust more? Because I can guarantee you, even though Russ can't shoot a lick from three, I bank more on him making an impact in a playoff game for Harden when he needs it than
Well,
Jamal making an impact for
okay,
Nikola.
I would agree that I think Russ is gonna play harder more, a higher percentage of the time, right? Than
Not just play
that.
harder, but I think
Yeah,
you can bank on him having more of an impact than Jamal
I
would.
don't think so, because if you go back and look at those two series, especially that San Antonio series, look at the differences between Jamal's look at his stats, between the difference between the wins and the losses. And when they won, Jamal was averaging, I think, like 25 a game. So if he's playing well, then his impact is, I think, way more than we realize. Because
Right.
he was, the thing is that he was in that, especially in game 7 against San Antonio. He made, like, I think he had like 6 straight points right in the final couple of minutes in that game. I mean, he was clutch for that
There was a
team.
game that he single-handedly kept them alive, and they ended up winning.
Right.
Was it Game 7 that they did
It
that?
might
I
have been
don't think it was Game
I don't
7.
think it was game 7, because game 7, I think he struggled for most of the game until that fourth quarter. But you gotta, I think the thing is that with the Nuggets is, Jokic is their best player, but I still believe that Jamal might be their most important. And we saw it in the playoffs last year, because Jokic played great every game, even in those losses. But the ones that they won, it was Jamal putting up 20 to 25 points.
Yeah.
And so they need him to play at that level. And that was his first playoff series. And I get it was Jokic, it was all of their first playoff series, other than Paul and maybe Will. But I think for Jokic at 25 years old, and his mentality and the way he plays the game, he can be consistent. I think for Jamal, I think he needed a couple of series, a playoff run, to really learn that you have to play at that level every night. And if you're struggling shooting the ball, then in the fourth quarter, when it matters most, you got to step up. And he did. He did it in a few of those games. It just wasn't consistent. And that's the problem with Jamal. But I think he can be consistent in the playoffs. I don't think he's the guy that will ever be consistent in the regular season. I just don't. And that's just it's a long season. He's just not going to do that. But at 21 years old, for his first playoff run, it was pretty good. especially when you look at those wins. It was great. So
Well,
that's the thing. That's the question: is he going to be that guy at least the majority of the games? And if
and
not, then no.
with you bringing that up, it brings me to another point to why I would be extremely nervous if we just jumped into the playoffs, because now you're giving a guy who's notoriously known as being inconsistent, you're forcing him now it's okay, now it's go time, now you have to have a sense of urgency, so now he might press even more, to know, okay, I've been inconsistent in the past, I have to find a way to be consistent. I just Jamal
But
has all the talent in the world, but it's just he's just, and I agree with you, he's probably their most valuable player in terms of, and that's just how much we respect Nikola, is because we expect Nikola to put up what he's going to put up and do what he's going to do. And now it's on Jamal. We need you. Like, we absolutely need you to do something. And I just don't have that trust in Jamal right now. Even though he did it last year, he did it in spots, but the great ones do it every night. I
yeah,
mean,
but
they may have one bad game.
not in their first playoff series at 21 years old.
Right.
And I think that's
right.
that's the thing that we forget about Jamal too, is
Yes.
he's not even close to his prime, and he's averaging 18, 19 points per game, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Like, he's doing things at his age that, you know, Kyrie was doing the same thing before LeBron got there, and LeBron sped up his process. And so, like, it's the same. Like, look at Dame. Look at what he was doing at 21, 22 years old. You know, it wasn't, maybe he was averaging a little bit more, but you know, Jamal is not going to be as, I don't think it's going to be as great as those two guys. But what I'm saying is, at 21 years old, you know, you're not going to be consistent. You're not going to be that guy that fans expect you to be, because you're not there yet. It's just that simple. He's not there yet. Unless you have a guy that can speed up that process, which I believe there's only one guy in the NBA that can do that, then it's going to take time. And that's why I always say, you know, their window is not now. And their window is based on Jamal. Really. Once Jamal hits his prime, that's their window. And, you know, Jokic will be in his prime. And the thing about Jokic, even when he's 33, 34, 35, he'll be able to play the same way he does now. He doesn't rely on his athleticism. It's kind of like Dirk, where Dirk was, you know, Dirk won a championship at what, 34? Something like that.
I mean, he was at the tail end of his prime.
Right. So that's the thing, and he was still playing great. So like Jokic has a longer window for his prime. Whereas I think guys like Jamal, you got to wait till he hits 25, 26, and then you're ready to go. And at that point, unfortunately for Jokic, I mean, he's going to be 30, but you're going to have to wait for that point, or 28, 29. But that, I mean, at that point, when Jamal's 26, yeah, I think Jokic is 2 years older. So when Jamal's 26, Jokic will be 28, 29. Porter will be about 24. They're all entering their prime. Well, at least they're all in their prime. You know, Porter's probably entering it. Jamal's right in it. Jokic is right in the middle of his. So that's going to be their window. And I think right now, the fact that they're making the playoffs as a 2-3 seed is great, because now they're learning. They're learning how to win in the playoffs, especially on the road. And they're learning. 2 Game 7s last year was huge for them. Like, that was, I would have rather had them do that than sweep both teams and then get swept by Golden State in the third round, because it would have been too easy. It would have been, they wouldn't have learned anything. They learned how to, and just look at that San Antonio series. The first game, they lost. Okay, you got to figure out how to win a playoff game, like, just at home. They did it in game 2. Game 3, they lose. Okay, now you got to learn how to win a playoff game on the road. And that's extremely difficult. And that was one thing that people did not think they could do. And they figured it out. They won game 4. And
5.
And 5. But game 5 was at home. And then they lose game 6. But then it's like, okay, well, in game 6, you can close out. You're up 3-2. You can close out. And they couldn't do it.
Obliterated in game 6.
Right. But again,
by 17.
And especially on the road, it's hard to do. But at the same time, you got to learn how to close out. Closing out a series is completely different than winning game 2 and 3. Like, it's completely different. So you got to learn how to close out that series, because that team is desperate. They're going to play at the top of their game to stay alive. So you got to learn how to beat that. And they couldn't do it in Game 6. They learned how to do it in Game 7. Again, you go into the next series against Portland. Okay, well, last series you lost Game 1. You got to come out fast. You got to know where you got to have that intensity, right? And they did. They win Game 1. Game 2, I don't remember really what happened in Game 2, to be honest. Game 3,
that was one of those cold nights.
Yeah, and Game 3 was just one of those games. I mean, 4 overtimes, you have chances to win. Both teams really had chances to win in all of those overtimes. I mean, it's just, I mean, that's one of those. It's like, all right, well, it's fine at this point. Like, whatever. I mean, it was a great game, but then they come back and they win Game 4. So they had a lot of adversity in those 2 series, and I think that was a lot of growing up that they had to do in those 2 series. Whereas for most teams, like Golden State, when they were first starting, they beat Denver in 6 without Gallo, with a hurt Fareed and hurt Ty Lawson. Then they had to play San Antonio, and they got bounced pretty easily. The next year, they did the same thing. They got past the first round. They got bounced by San Antonio in the next round. So they kind of just had to do the same thing twice to kind of really figure it out and catch fire. Because that third year, the next year, they got to the NBA Finals, and that was that first year. And if Kyrie and Kevin Love weren't hurt, they probably would have lost finals, to be honest. So it's just, you got to kind of take it step by step. And unfortunately for the Nuggets, they don't have someone like, they're not in a city where they can just like, hey, Giannis, come on over and let's speed up this process. They just can't do that. So you got to wait. Right. And you got to hope that the team and the front office holds on to the guys that are most important and doesn't let one of them go like Oklahoma City did and screws them over. So it's just, it's going to be a long process. And unfortunately for the Nuggets, we're right in the beginning of it. Like, we're not in the middle. We're right. They just made their first playoff run. Like, that, we're right in the beginning of it. And they have a lot of growing up to do, including Jokic.
And you mentioned it too, and I forget personally too. Like, Jamal is still young, but he's young in the sense of his age, but he's not young in the sense of how long he's been in the league. He's going into his 3rd, 4th year. So I get it. There's still a lot of growing pains to be learned with a player like that. And he does average, close to 19 points a game, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, which is really solid numbers for someone at age 23. He just turned 23 in February, I think it was. So for
example here, so Jamal is 22, right? Or he's
23.
23. So last year, what was his numbers last year at 22 years old?
Let's see. Stats. Last year he averaged 18, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds.
Okay, and then what was his shooting percentages?
Last year he was at 85 from the 3, 37 from 3, and 44 from the field. This year he was down in 3.
What was his 3 again last year?
37. It was 36.7. I'm just rounding up.
Okay, so check this out. Damian Lillard, at age 22, he was actually a rookie at 22. So a little bit different because he hasn't had years in the NBA. But age-wise, he had more years in college, right, to figure things out. So at age 22, Damian Lillard averaged 19 points per game, 19 even, 6.5 assists, 3.1 rebounds. He shot 84 from the free throw line. He shot 36.8% from 3 and 42.9% from the field.
It's almost identical.
Pretty much in his second year at age 23, he averaged 20.7 points per game, 5.6 assists, 3.5 rebounds. He shot 87 from the free throw line, 39 from 3, and 40, a little bit lower from the field, barely 42. So pretty much the same thing. It wasn't until he hit 25, because at 24 he averaged 21, 6, and 4. So a bit of a jump, but not really. It wasn't until he turned 25 where he averaged 25 points per game, 6.8 assists, 4 rebounds, shot 89% from the free throw line. Let's see. I just lost my spot here. Let's see. 37 from 3 and 42 from the field. So his percentages have really been pretty much the same throughout his whole career. But again, it wasn't until at 25 that he had a big jump. Funny enough, he didn't make the All-Star team that year, but it took some time, and I think the age is the big thing. Like, I get that was only his 4th year where he was averaging 25 points per game, but he was 25. Like, he came into the league late. He had time in college to kind of learn how to be consistent. I think
He was
that's
more polished. Yeah.
yeah, he was more polished. So I would put them kind of at the same level. And their numbers at Damian's age is pretty similar to Jamal's, and his
each year,
game
if you
is
look
similar.
at Jamal's career, he's made a jump. 6 points,
Mhm.
points per game to his second year, 2 points per game to his third year. This year, he was averaging 18 as well before everything got stopped. We were 55 games in, I believe,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, or at least that's how many games he played and started. Did Jamal miss time at all this year? He
Yeah,
did,
yeah,
right?
he missed some time.
So I think we had about, I don't know, like 17 some odd games left. So he probably would have finished around 19, maybe close to 20
Mhm.
points per game. I don't know if he would have matched his 3-point percentage from last year. Last year he was at 37 if you round up. This year if you round up he would be, as it stopped, he was at 35, so maybe he gets to 36.
Yeah,
He was shooting better from the field in general than last year, about 2 percentage points. So
it's pretty much the
each
same.
year he's making a jump. It doesn't look like it's significant, and it's, I don't know. It's
Here's
just a
another example.
situation.
Kyrie Irving at uh at 22 years old, averaged 21.7 points per game, 5 assists and 3 rebounds. At 23 years old, he averaged a little bit lower, 19 points per game, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. It wasn't until he turned 24 and when LeBron came in that he made that jump, 25 points per game after averaging 19. So again, it's that 24, 25 years old where they tend to make that jump. Again, I just think Jamal's a year or two away, which means the Nuggets are a year or two away. It's that simple. I mean, I could pull up Steph's. It's the same thing. I could pull up anyone's. You have to hit. I could pull up LeBron's. I mean, he made it to the NBA Finals at 22. His was a little bit of a more of an incline, but still, I mean, it takes time. Look at Melo's. It takes time, and
Mhm.
that's just how it is. Especially with these point guards. I mean, it takes because they have to be the leaders of the team, and fortunately for Jamal, he has Jokic that can take some of that weight. But
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. It takes time. It really does. It's not simple. And I mean, I think it's hard for people to really kind of remember that how young these guys are because they're playing at such a high level. They're winning so many games. Like Damian Lillard and Kyrie Irving, they weren't winning 55, 54 games at 22 years old. That doesn't happen. So I think the expectations for Jamal and for the Nuggets is so much higher because they're winning so many more games. But it's just in order to win in the playoffs, you have to be in your prime. You don't win. Even LeBron, I mean, at 22 years old, he got them to the NBA Finals. I mean, that ridiculous, series against Detroit, which they should not have won. I mean, it took that for them to make it to the NBA Finals, and then they got swept, and they got demolished. It wasn't. I don't think there was a single game that was close. So like, it's just it doesn't matter who it is. You have to wait until your prime. It took Jordan to get to 27 years old to win. Why? Because he had to wait until Pippen got to 23, 24. And so it takes time. It's just even for the second, third guys, you need them in their prime. It's that simple. I mean, you look at every single team. Oklahoma City, when they made it to the finals and they lost to Miami, they were all 21, 22 years old. They had no chance. So it's just, and you had 3 future MVPs on that team. They were just too young. So it's
And I
just,
think we have to remember too, like Jamal was 18, 19 years old coming into the league after playing 1 year at Kentucky. So I get it. It's just, I think part of it, like you said, is expectations. You're expecting this team to be there. You're expecting, you see Jokic doing everything he's doing, and you want someone to come along with him right now because if you could even get an ounce of a star coming and helping him, that this team could do major things. But there has to be patience there, and we've seen flashes of what Jamal could be at his ceiling if he has one. Like it could be a very high star level player, but we also know that if he continues this trajectory, he could just be like a J.R. Smith, a guy who is streaky, inconsistent, can light it up for a game or stretches, but then have games where he's just disappearing and you don't know where he's at, and he's shooting over, and you're just like, what is this guy doing? And you just feel like he never reached his full potential. It's an interesting Nuggets team, and I swear last night I had a dream about just watching the Nuggets, and just the stress levels were shooting through the roof, because that's one thing I'm not looking forward to, is just watching this team again. As much as I want to see basketball again, I'm not ready for that anxiety and the stress level that they're going to bring me, especially if we jump right into the playoffs. Like, you didn't even give me time to like prepare myself for a letdown. Now I'm in it. Now I'm fully invested, and I just don't know where to go with this team. But it's an interesting topic that you mentioned earlier about Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah.
and what his outlook might be in the playoffs. I'm interested to think about what his minutes will look like, because if we remember in the season, he didn't get minutes early, and then he had a stretch where he was like, okay, he had about a 5 to 7 game stretch where you're like, whoa, this guy is popping, and he was starting to get 20-ish minutes a game, and then he hurts his ankle, and then he comes back, and then it was, okay, we're gonna put you out there. Oh, now you're screwing up defensively. Now we're gonna take you out. And then there was a couple DMPs on those box scores, and then there was a couple games where he didn't play, more than 10 minutes a game or something like that. And now with the suspension, I wonder where Michael Malone is at with Michael Porter Jr. and how he can use him, because I can guarantee you, if I had to choose today, in my gut, I don't think MPJ breaks the lineup at all.
No.
I think it's going to be your
Unfortunately.
starting five. I think it'll be, guys like Torrey Craig. There's no Juancho to get time, thank God. Juancho's a great guy, but he was killing me. There's no Malik, which I think they're going to regret at some point. So if we go through the rotation, obviously Jamal, Gary, Nikola, Mason Plumlee, Paul Millsap, Jeremy Grant, Will Barton. You're already at 7 right there. Torrey Craig, he's that fringe guy, Monte Morris. So that's 9 right there. How does Michael Porter Jr. break into that, especially now if you go straight into the playoffs where the intensity and the urgency is ratcheted up 1,000%? I just don't think he sees any time unless it's a blowout.
No, he won't. And the unfortunate thing, I'm looking at his per 36. It just makes me mad. Do you take a guess of what his per 36 looks like?
He was probably at, I don't know, 20, 22, 25-ish points, I would say.
Not that high.
No? Okay.
It was at 19 points.
Okay.
19 points per game. If he played 36 minutes per game, for those who don't know, the per 36 minutes takes your minutes per game. So I think let's see, what is his normal minutes per game right now? 14. So he's averaging 14 minutes per game right now. If you just kind of raise that up to 36 and make that difference to his, other stats as well. So he'd be averaging 19 points per game, 10.7 rebounds per game, 2 assists per game.
10.7 rebounds.
A steal and a block per game as well, and just 2 turnovers per game. Shooting 42% he was shooting 42% from 3, 50% from the field. I mean, offensively, there's no reason why he should not be playing. Like, it just, and that's what they need. Like, and I get where Malone is coming. I get it, but you need this guy. Like, he's exactly what the team is missing. Like, if you look at the team, he is the missing piece. That's why everyone is so excited. That's why Malone gets questions about him every single interview. It's always there's always at least 1 or 2 questions about Porter. Why didn't he play? He played. What did you think about him? Is he going to play more? Constantly, every single day.
I think coaches
And there's a
overthink themselves too
reason.
much.
Like, just look at the 19, 10.7, a block and a steal per game, shooting 50, 40, and 77% from the free throw line.
Well, I mean that's the per 36, so it's
Right.
not what.
But if you
But
play
I mean they're taking the they're mathematically trying to determine that. So that could be his averages.
and it could,
That could be.
his percentages could decrease because he's playing more, maybe taking more shots. It
Right.
could.
Right.
But at the same time, have you seen his shot? Do you really think it's going to lower that much?
Well,
Okay, maybe he's
that's the
shooting
other thing,
38 from
too.
3.
That's the other issue I have with Jamal, because like this guy is in year 1 and you see this and you're like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, but it's also not consistent though. It's
True.
It's very
but he's year
inconsistent.
1. He's year 1 as opposed to year 4. And I like when
Yeah,
you
but
see
this guy
year
was
one
supposed to be
guy
the
doing
number 1
this-
overall pick though. You're
Exactly.
talking about the guy who was
Exactly.
supposed to be number 1 and a guy who wasn't even the first point guard off the list.
Right. No, that's true. But it just that's where it also gets me with Jamal, because it's like at the end of the day, if you know when a player in any sport is special, you just see it. And with MPJ, and that's why, to your point, Michael Malone gets questions all the time of why don't you play MPJ? Because everybody sees, oh my God, this kid could be a unicorn.
Right.
And I agree with you. Like Nikola is the guy right now, but you look down the list and that could be the guy in a few years. Like he has that talent, and
Not
not
just
only
on
just on
Denver.
this team. Yeah, not just on this team, but like he could be like, hey, that's a guy top 5 that the Nuggets have right now.
That's a
in
guy
the
that
league.
New York is already preparing to offer a max deal in 7 years.
Easily. That's a guy that the Lakers want to pluck.
Right.
That's a guy that these teams, the Clippers, when Kawhi's got that. MPJ, now granted, he has his own setbacks. He has the injury issues and stuff like that. So you just don't know with a guy like him. But best case scenario, I mean, he has all the talent in the world.
I mean,
Like,
best case
poor
scenario,
man's Kevin Durant stuff.
I mean, if you're saying that he's going to reach his best case scenario, you're telling me that he's going to be an MVP.
He has that
That
talent.
he will win MVP at some point. If
Yeah,
you're
he has that
saying,
talent.
if someone came down and said, all right, Michael Porter is going to hit his max potential and he's going to be healthy, everything is going to go the way that it's going to be perfect, then that means
I'd say
you're telling me,
where is he playing? He must not be in Denver. Where is he playing? Where did he leave us for? That's
Right.
what I'd say.
I mean, essentially, yeah. I mean, you're like, okay, well, I guess he's playing for the Lakers now. But
Yeah.
you're saying then that means you're telling me that he's going to win at least 1 MVP, at least, maybe 2, maybe 3, and he's going to be a champion. He's going to win a championship. I don't know for who, but that's where and he's going to win Finals MVP.
So frustrating, because
That's
you
that
see
guy.
with this guy. You see with this guy what he can do. And I like you said, I get with Michael Malone. I get what he's trying to do. I know he wants to win now. And ultimately at the end of the day, it's about his job security too, to an extent, right? Like he has to win. He has to capitalize
Yeah,
on
but
this
it's the
team
same
like George
damn
Karl
mistake.
couldn't.
But it's the same
But-
damn mistake every coach makes, and they get fired. You know, when they hired Malone, and we were at Met Radio at the time, and we were doing a show, and what did we say? Well, I know what I said. This is their gap guy. This is the guy that's going to develop these young players, and they're going to pass it on to another coach, and that coach is going to take them to the next level. I'm sorry, but I still say the same thing. I still see the same. It's like Mark Jackson, and then that was a little different, I think. But you can't tell me that Steve Kerr is not a better coach, because he took that team who lost in the second round for the second straight year against San Antonio to the NBA Finals, and they won.
I don't know. Would it have been that much different if Mark Jackson would have stayed?
Things clicked.
Sure,
However way you want to say. Do you really think that
If I
they would have
remember
won
right-
the NBA Finals in that next year with Mark Jackson? I mean, I'm not sure.
It was an issue between him and the GM at the time. I
Right.
don't think it was an issue with his coaching
I
style or
think-
what he was doing.
No, but I think what Steve Kerr did, though, I think the addition of Steve Kerr and removing Mark Jackson was a new voice. And it was, to guys like Steph, to guys like Clay and Draymond, it just clicked with him. And he was able to, and you got to remember, Steve Kerr had 4 championships at that point as a player. So there's things that Steve Kerr knew and that he could get that team to do that I don't think Mark Jackson could have done. And I'm not advocating for the Nuggets to fire Malone, because I love Malone. He's one of my favorite coaches in the league. I mean, he gets endorsement from guys like Greg Popovich. Like that's what makes me think, okay, well, Malone can be that guy, but I mean, it's just I'm seeing the same damn mistakes that these other coaches have made in the past, and it got them fired. And what happened? They hired a new coach, and that new coach went on to win championships. Like
It's a fine balance.
The same thing.
It's a fine balance for him too, because I understand like how he could be put in a predicament. Do I want to capitalize on what we have now and try and, win now? Which, as a coach, they're not gonna, as their pride as a competitor, they're not gonna say we have no chance. But realistically, everybody knows the Nuggets have a very slim chance to even ever win an NBA Finals as currently constructed. Or do I sacrifice 5 to 7 wins each year and let a guy like MPJ go out there, get his bumps, get his bruises? Hopefully he stays healthy, but it could pay off in 2 seasons to where, okay, now you have prime Jokic. Hopefully you have a prime Jamal Murray that's more consistent, that's averaging somewhere between 22 to 24 points per game. And now you have an MPJ who's going into his 3rd or 4th year, and he's a legitimate all-star level player. It's a fine balance of what you want to do, and you have to have that trust in your front office. And that's the thing we don't know. We don't know where that's at, because I believe he signed a 1-year extension, correct?
Yeah.
He was going into the last year of his contract this year, and I think they signed him to a 1-year extension for next year. So to me, that tells me that they have faith in him, but it's still a wait and see game. And who knows, maybe it could be him asking just give me 1 year instead of signing long term. Or it could be them saying, we love you, Mike, but we just kind of still want to wait and see how this plays out.
Well, and that's where I defend Malone, because it's not like they're giving him a 3-4 year deal and telling him you got time.
Yeah.
And so
exactly.
like that's the hard thing. And if you're in Malone's position, I mean, to be honest, I'd probably be doing the same thing.
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
And that's where you have to kind of level with them.
But what that means though is that what eventually is going to happen is the same thing that happened to Mark Jackson. And it's going to be the same thing that happened to Scotty Brooks over in Oklahoma City. It's the same thing that's going to happen to all these guys. Doug Collins in Chicago, they let him go for Phil Jackson. So it's just like it's happened with so many teams. I mean, the one team that it really didn't, and the one coach that it really didn't happen to was Greg Popovich. But to be honest, I don't know if Pop coached for another team before San Antonio, and he might have. I don't know. So it's just, you got to hope that Malone is going to be the Greg Popovich of the Denver Nuggets. But at the same time, he could very easily be the Mark Jackson of the Denver Nuggets. Like, but also the other thing for those people who are advocating for the Nuggets to let go of Malone is, okay, well, who are you going to go out and get?
Right.
I mean, Golden State had a great opportunity to get Steve Kerr.
I'm looking at the extension too right now, and it looks like he's actually been signed through the 22-23 season.
Okay, so then he has no excuses now.
So it's a couple years. So yeah, I mean, at this point,
you got time.
I mean, he's got, next year. So 2021, he's got 21-22, and then that 22-23 is the last season. So
he's got 3 more seasons on top of this season.
Yeah. So I mean, now it might be a situation to next year, which if next year MPJ's not like the 6th man coming off the bench
or a starter,
I don't know if he'll start, but if he's not,
if he wins it, he could win it.
Man,
I wouldn't be shocked if he won that starting spot. I mean, that is,
and maybe that's a nudge that comes from Tim, that's like, hey, let's get this guy, because I don't know what Will Barton's contract looks like.
I mean, they could easily do something too, where they trade Gary, and maybe they trade Gary for someone that can play the 4, and to replace Millsap, and then they move Barton to the 2 and move MPJ to the 3. But then you're losing a lot of defense. You're gaining length, but you're losing a lot. I don't know. Or they could just move Gary to the bench, put Barton at the 2, keep Millsap at the 4, or even if you let go of Millsap, you have Jeremy Grant at the 4, and you
Well, it's
put
funny you mentioned
Porter at the
Jeremy
3.
Grant because Jeremy Grant has a player option.
Yeah.
And they actually, yesterday I saw something on it that he's looking to decline his player option, which is
Makes
smart
sense.
as a player,
Yep.
because I mean, if you're playing well, you want to decline that to, maximize what you can gain. If you're playing terribly, then
Yeah.
you want to
He's
exercise
also
that
on a
player
very
option.
small deal that he
Right.
can.
So that's an interesting situation because what do you do with a guy like Jeremy Grant?
You're gonna have to let Millsap go unless Millsap takes a big discount, which Millsap should. I mean, it's not like he's gonna get 30 million somewhere else.
No.
So they can
And
decline
mid-30s.
they can decline. They're gonna decline. Or actually, no, he's done. Never mind. They already accepted that option, but because he only had a 3-year deal, but the third was a team option. I don't know how the Nuggets got that contract. Whatever. I don't know why Millsap did that. But I guess it worked out at the end of the day. But he's not going to make $30 million. So that opens up $30 million for the Nuggets. Like, it's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, Paul's a UFA next year at 35.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because you kind of wish that it would have been next year where they would have opened up all this money. Because they could have, I mean, you never know. I mean, they could have tried to get Giannis over here. But now you have a bunch of money to where you can re-sign Jeremy Grant and give him a nice deal. You obviously love him. Like, there's no reason why you wouldn't re-sign him, unless some team is offering him $30 million. Then I don't think you would do it. But
yeah, the free agency class coming up this year. I mean, you have Gordon Hayward. If he has a player option, I'm sure he'll probably exercise into that, honestly, because it's $31 million. Paul Millsap will be there. DeMar DeRozan has a player option of $27 million. And then after that, I mean, if Anthony Davis opts out of his 25, which he most likely will, to sign a bigger deal.
Yeah.
But it looks like he's probably going to stay in LA. But once you get outside
that
of that,
DeMar
I mean,
DeRozan one is interesting.
At 31.
It's funny. It makes sense for some reason. I don't really know why. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't give you an example, but it just makes sense that he would come here to Denver.
Could he make more than $27 million a year on his next contract at 31 though?
I don't know. I think Denver would be willing to offer him right around the same.
So that's after next season. So not this year, but next season. But essentially he could be a free agent this year if he
I think he will opt out though. Because he could go for a long-term deal.
He could still get a good contract.
Yeah, so I think and I don't think he wants to be in San Antonio.
It's a team that's kind of floundering after what they were.
Yeah, so I think he opts out. I think Denver is in the run for him.
But
I really do.
If you bring in a DeMar DeRozan,
then you're trading Gary Harris. So essentially what you're doing
what does that do for Will Barton?
You're letting Millsap go. You're trading Gary Harris. Will Barton either comes off the bench or starts at the 3, or DeRozan starts at the 3.
So
you either start one of them. So it's Jamal, Barton, DeRozan. You let Millsap go, so you probably start Jeremy Grant since you're gonna have to pay him a decent amount of money, and you go with Jokic. And off the bench, it opens up space for MPJ, Monte Morris. You gotta figure out your backup center. So do you try and re-sign Plumlee? Do you go out and get a different center? So you gotta figure that out. And then that's 8. I guess you have Torrey Craig still. You kind of just fell in.
I think Torrey's a free agent this year.
Yeah, they might re-sign Torrey. I don't know. But I mean, what happens with Bol Bol? Is Bol Bol gonna be healthy enough to play?
And that's the one too that we keep forgetting. He gets lost in all of this. What type of player he could be?
He's going to be your backup center. I mean, at some point, I don't know if it's I doubt it's going to be next year, but maybe the year after. He's going to be what Porter was next year, I think. Probably.
Could the Nuggets have easily the most interesting team in the NBA?
Oh yeah, I mean, when you look at at their cap space, because they're in the same. It's funny, they're in the same situation as Golden State was, where you've all these guys are homegrown, so you can take advantage of bird rights and rookie contracts and all this. Like they're in a very similar situation to where they could. There's a scenario and it's crazy, and again, we've talked about it on the show. But there's a scenario where you could go out and sign Giannis in 2022, Like there is that
Yeah, you can attempt
opportunity.
it. Yeah.
So
I'm not even speaking
with money,
essentially
I
from
mean,
the from a money standpoint. I'm talking most interesting in that you look at the players they have, a guy like Jamal Murray,
mhm,
but like the unique talent that they could
yeah,
possess it with a guy like Jokic and what he brings, a guy like MPJ and what he could bring, and the possibility of a Bol, a guy who's
yeah,
what is he, 7'2", 7'3",
he's
can
yeah,
handle like a guard, can shoot from anywhere on the floor. Obviously, he's thinner than a toothpick,
yeah,
but
and the
I
injuries,
mean,
yeah,
yeah, and he's got the foot issue, but it's such a weird team of like unicorns
yeah,
that
right,
they
right.
they have funny colors and their horn is kind of
Well, it's funny.
lopsided,
Okay,
but
okay, let's play this game. Who does Jamal compare to in the NBA right now? A star point guard. We just talked about him, Damian Lillard, right? I mean, I think that's the one guy that you could probably compare him to the most.
I mean, I guess his statistical trajectory, yes, but like if I'm
His
physically
size,
comparing him,
his size though, his shooting ability.
he's bigger than Dame though. Dame's like 6'2", Jamal's like 6'4".
Jamal's. I mean, I think Dame is 6'3". Hold on, I have him up here.
I would say, I mean, if I had to think of a
Dame is 6'2".
Jamal Murray comparison,
I see Damian Lillard's game in him, especially the way he shoots. I don't really know about
uh,
maybe I don't know anyone
I think
else.
I think he's a mixture of those type of guys. He's a
Right.
new arrow combo guard to where they can step out. They're volume shooters, but he's got a little bit of Kyrie in him in that he
Uh,
can make some tough
yeah.
shots and finish
Well,
in weird ways.
Dame can do
He's
that
a tough
too.
shot maker, which is stupid to me because
Let's just
Jamal can have an
say
open three and miss it, but
right.
like make a 360, you're on his back
Let's
layup.
play this game. Let's say everyone hits their star potential. Okay, so
Oh
Jamal.
God.
Let's say Jamal is
Oh no.
Damian. Let's
My
put them
heart is
all on a
beating.
team essentially. So
Don't
let's
tease me.
let's compare Jamal to Damian Lillard because we've been doing that all
Okay.
show. So let's put Damian Lillard on a team. Okay, now let's put who does Gary Harris compare to? See if
Well,
he
let's
hits
not
it.
slander Gary Harris more today.
Okay, well, let's just
I
say
don't want
if Gary Harris hits his star level, highest potential possible,
his
because
best
he's
case
only
scenario
again
potential.
he's only 25.
Best case scenario potential for Gary is like a poor man, like a very poor man's Klay Thompson. He can D you up. He can shoot mid range. He's not really going to step out in the third, but very. I'm trying to think of a 3 and mid range guy, not or a D and mid range, not a 3 and D guy, but a D
DeMar
and mid range
DeRozan.
guy. Yeah, but DeMar's not really even known for his defense though. That's the thing.
Cool.
And like all the defensive stoppers that you think of, I mean, they're like Pat Beverly. He's on one
What you
end.
just said with
Bruce
mid range
Bowen.
and D is Kawhi Leonard, but he's never gonna be Kawhi Leonard.
No.
Jimmy Butler.
Okay. Closer. Yeah. Like a very poor man's version of those guys. I mean, best case scenario for Gary is he's a 15 to 18 point per game guy.
Right.
That's best
Okay.
case.
Okay.
And we're
so,
struggling to get to 15. Like we're really struggling.
So it's hard. It's hard. Okay, let's put Damian Lillard, a poor man's Jimmy Butler. Okay, Porter, obviously Kevin Durant.
That's Kevin Durant light.
Okay. Then let's put
Oh, sweet
Jokic.
mama.
So Jokic is Jokic.
Jokic
You
is
can't
just
really
Jokic.
compare anyone
Yeah,
to him.
yeah, he's just one of his own.
And then Bol. And say
That's a
Bol
weird
hits his max. He's
That's like a Porzingis, Kevin Durant type of like mix those guys a little bit. I would say he's probably got better handle than a Porzingis, but he's similar in that they're big guys. 7'2" ish,
right.
can
He
handle,
shoot.
can shoot. I would say Porzingis is probably a good comparison, like that type of. Now I'm not
Okay,
going to say he is
so
Porzingis,
we just
but
put
like
together.
best case.
We just put literally an all-star team together. We put Damian Lillard with a poor man's Jimmy Butler, Kevin Durant, Nikola Jokic, and Porzingis / Kevin Durant.
And in true Nuggets fashion, they get swept in the first round.
But like you
with
said,
that.
though, it is the most interesting, probably the most interesting team in the league
It is,
because
but it
you have the
comes with
potential of all those guys.
it comes with a lot of question marks. You can go down that list of each guy though, and you can list a legitimate question mark. What is it for Jamal? It's the inconsistencies. Can he take that step? What is it with Gary? Can he just be productive? That's the question mark with Gary.
On the offensive end.
MPJ, yeah, MPJ. can he stay healthy?
Yeah.
He's the
And
talent. Can he stay healthy?
can he even get on the floor? Can he understand
Exactly.
defensive concepts, even the offensive
Right.
concepts? Can he get there mentally?
With Nikola, it's the intensity, the consistency of dominating every night because
mentality.
you're the guy. It's that. And then with Bol, it's also the health thing.
Yeah.
With that as well. So I mean, every guy has like, oh my God, if you reach max potential, and you could do this with every team if every guy reaches their max potential. But like this team has such unique talent up and down the board that it's like, oh my God, if they could really just even reach 75% of what they could possibly
They need
be.
what happened to Golden State happen to them. Because Golden
They need
State
what happened to OKC. That's what they need.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you had 3 MVPs on one team.
But none of them really hit their only 2 of them hit their prime on the team.
Yeah, I mean, well, the third couldn't. He's coming off the bench, and who did they have starting over James Harden on those teams?
I don't know.
Was it Thabo Sefolosha?
Yeah, probably.
Was he the 3?
Which makes sense because you want a defensive guy.
But I mean, you look back on that.
Yeah, but at the time, James Harden wasn't James Harden.
But he was really good though. He was good coming off the bench. He was like
but he couldn't play
15
defense.
points per game.
He still can't.
No, but
you don't start that
solid.
guy. You don't start that guy.
No.
Yeah, I mean that's what you need, and then you just need to be able to keep them together as long as you can. Which fortunately for them, Bobo's on a rookie contract, Porter's on a rookie contract, Jamal and Jokic are paying. You got a big time discount on Gary Harris. So
which honestly it might look like right now you're overpaying for Gary Harris with the way he's playing.
Yeah.
No disrespect, Gary. We're just speaking facts here.
But they have when you combine their young talent and where they are with the money, they are in one of the weirdest, like highest potential possible positions a team could possibly be in. Like they are in
the potential to field the most talented Denver Nuggets team of all time. If all
they
these
have
guys
they have
reach
the potential to put together the most talented team of all time. It won't happen. But if you say they keep
that.
Okay, well let's just we went through.
I mean,
yes,
okay. If they do that, yes. But I mean, you look at that OKC team; they had 3 MVPs on one team.
But they were all 21, 22.
How do you let that go? How do you let that go?
I don't know.
God.
But, yeah, I mean the Nuggets are in a crazy position. Like we were both saying, I don't think Gary Harris is ever gonna hit that. Jamal is probably not gonna hit at that level, like Dame level. Porter could. I mean, it's the injuries. Jokic, we have no idea what's going on in that dude's brain. Bol is
like a monkey with the tambourine sometimes.
Bol is a walking toothpick, literally.
He is dental floss. Just walking around.
So
5 mile per hour wind blows him away.
Yeah. So obviously, like it's fun thinking about their potential and all of that, but like at the same time, you do have to be realistic. So we get
it is
that.
The Denver Nuggets.
And it's the Denver Nuggets. So with the luck of what Denver's history has been, I mean, to be honest, I'm shocked that Jokic is Jokic. If you talk about Denver's luck, but yeah, I mean that's where they're at. So.
And then hopefully by that time, Drew Lock is a 2-time MVP and we're winning Super Bowls again. So I can at least, when I'm crying of misery watching the Nuggets fail in the first round again, I can at least look at the Broncos and be like, thank you.
Yeah.
It's an interesting team. It's an interesting team. And either way, we're excited for it. I mean, the NBA announced today that Disney and the NBA have agreed that Disney's Coronado Springs Resort is likely to be the primary host resort for the league when they resume this season, per Keith Smith of the NBA. So regardless, it looks like we're getting the NBA back. We just don't know how it's going to happen.
I just want to just warn other Denver Nuggets fans that just got really excited after what we talked about.
No,
just prepare yourself that the Nuggets, there's a very good chance that they would be bounced in the first round. It's just the reality of it.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to remember their youth. You just have to continue to remember their youth. And it's just, even Jokic is young. like, it doesn't feel
honestly,
like
this year, if they lose in the first round, like I'm not,
it's going to
suck,
be
but
disappointing.
I'm not gonna hold it over them.
Right.
With everything that happened. Even if a team wins the championship, like that's it takes a lot of guts for a team to win the championship coming out of
it's hard no matter what
we're doing. But I know a lot of people say, "Oh, asterisks don't exist in sport." For me, I would look back on this and be like, "Yeah, that was kind of a fluky season."
Unless
Whether you
LeBron
win
wins
or
it,
not.
then no, it was really difficult.
Yeah. Unless LeBron wins it, then it was extremely hard. He had to carry everybody, and nothing else matters. LeBron had to go through a pandemic to win. Michael Jordan didn't have to beat a pandemic to win a championship. That's the new argument right there. You heard it here first. When did Jordan have to beat a pandemic?
Jordan took a break and he
Yeah,
lost.
yeah,
He came back
yeah.
and he lost.
Exactly. That's the new one. I can already see Skip Bayless's gears turning in how he can, neutralize and bring down this virus's impact on the season and all that stuff. But we want to thank you for tuning in today. It was a fun show. We know it was mainly basketball related and Nuggets related, but we got a kick out of it. Hopefully you did too. This has been the Behind the Glass Sports Podcast. We will catch you guys on Friday.